Now, Ghana has always been seen as the star of the region when it comes to politics, business, but had it in the past been described by some people as a favourable business destination for doing business? But are we still having this prestigious accolade or the preferred business destination, or after some international firms got out of the country, citing the challenging business environment as one of the reasons why they are going out? One can talk about Global, the latest firm to exit the country. But is it a situation of a challenging situation for the economy, or just these firms are not adjusting their business modules to these challenging times? Is Ghana losing out as the favourable business destination in the region? Or maybe most of these businesses are just failing to review their modules in these times. Yofi Grant is the Chief Executive of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. Will be joining us on this discussion. Professor Robert Osem is an economist, and he will also be bringing us the economist perspective. Samagre, General Secretary of the Importers Association, also be getting the view of businesses on the ground as you look at whether you're looking out as a country as the preferred business destination, or maybe just these firms are not being able to be current to the current situation. All these issues wrapped up here on PM Express Business Edition. Right back. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we talk about the economy, the business environment, and the investment climate, and whether we are losing our accolade as the preferred business destination in the region because of current challenges that are facing our economy. But also you're looking at the bigger picture about whether these international firms are just not being that strategic to reform to the current challenges facing the economy, which I must say that it is not oblivious to other economies in the region as well. We're getting the thoughts of the chief investment promoter for this country, Yofi Grant, who's the chief executive of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, will be joining us as he tries to bring in these companies. What is he also doing to ensure that they stay in the country? And also an economist who has a bigger understanding of foreign capital attraction, FDIs, and grants and economy in these times. Professor Robert Osem is an economist, he's a senior economist at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, and also somebody who works with these businesses, these multinationals that are in this country. That is Samuel Agri, who's with the Food and Beverage Association. Mr. Agri, thank you so much for joining us in the studio. And I'll also be getting to Yofi Grant to join us via Zoom, and also Professor Robert Osei. He is an economist. So Yofi Grant is the Chief Executive of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, and also Professor Robert Osei. He's an economist as well. And thank you for all these distinguished gentlemen participating in our discussion tonight. But before I get to Zoom to bring in the thoughts of Professor Robert Osei and also Yofi Grant, Chief Executive of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, let me get the thoughts of Sam Agri. I mean, are your colleagues, I mean, recent one was Global, are they just, and the question is not being that strategic in these times, so, because if you read some of the announcement, it appears that it is not just a Ghana situation. They are also getting out of other markets as well. Why are your colleagues getting out of Ghana market?
Thank you, and good evening to your listeners and your viewers. In fact, the situation is getting dire.
How dire the situation?
Yeah. So if you look at these companies amidst those service providers, you could see Glovo, you could see Jumia, you could see Game, and then other service providers like we have in the supermarket chain, that is Game and Citidia. They left the country earlier on, about 2 years ago. And then other people in that area are also contemplating leaving because of the economic situation that we have. If you look at some of the taxation policies that we have in this country, actually, it's not helping most of these businesses who have rather come in, invest so much, and they expect to make more money so that invest and expand their businesses and employ more. Unfortunately, what we see is that the very investment that they put in place over the years, they've dwindled down. If you look at the way the city has depreciated, and then you look at the depreciation itself of the economy, how investments were losing their money throughout the depreciation of the city at that time. So you look at it whether you're really making the money that you're supposed to make, or you are losing the chunk size of your money. So in order not to lose so much, you look at it whether you have any unmovable properties on the ground that it could be difficult for you to move out, or your service is such that you could easily walk out of the system and then make sure that you don't lose all your money. So if they look at the other areas where profitability is the hallmark, then they decide, okay, then let me look at these areas where I can really move out. But as they are moving out, I see it as an opportunity for the indigenous companies or businessmen to rather fill in the gap to ensure that we don't lose so much in this area. So if there's anything to go by, we should look at the policies that is not making Ghana an attractive destination. We thought ourselves as a country of gateway, and to come to Africa to do business. Ghana is the preferred destination to come. And when you come in and you put your money in there, you realize that it's a different ball altogether. So we will expect that as time goes on, we look at the situation as it is, and then we also devise some policies that will really help business.
I mean, it appears that your members are citing the depreciation of the Ghana cedi as one of the major concerns and all the rest. But there are some who are saying if it's about currency depreciation, and it's not just a situation about just a Ghana thing. If you even look at the sub-region, recently, Cousins, as well, the group CEO, was raising concerns about the return on profitability when you look at even the region Africa as a whole. So it appears that it's not a Ghana situation. And when your members cite the situation as a Ghana situation, some are saying that they are not being fair.
For us in Ghana, that is where we put our money. And therefore, if we are talking about Ghana, that is where we look at how the situation is before we look at outside the borders. Because we expect that as we are in the country investing in the economy and raising that money, it will offer us the opportunity to also invest in other West African countries. If not so, we produce and export to this West African market. But unfortunately, we've allowed ourselves for other businesses to come in. Let me say specifically for the Chinese market that has taken over our economy. If you look at the things that they produce, sometimes we say it's cheaper, but then the quality aspect, you also look at it. So when you go in there, the Chinese people are eager to bring in whatever they have into this market, and therefore we need to guard against all these things and to ensure that the local manufacturers are able to produce so much to feed the market that we want. But if we allow the cheap things to come in, and we don't check the way they come in, and if it comes to production, then you compete with this market, and then you ask yourself, if I'm getting it cheaper, why don't I go back to these areas to produce and bring them in? When you do that, what is happening is that you are producing at a cheaper cost on the external market, bringing it into your system, where the money or the hard currency that we are talking about, the capital flight, this is how this money goes. So if we really want to ensure that these people come in, establish their businesses, and they stay in this country and grow their businesses, we should look at the policies that we have. Is the tax helping the economy? If the taxes are not right, what is really happening? Are we able to stabilize our city to ensure that these businesses really reap what they have invested? Because you cannot come in and invest millions of dollars, say 30 million, 100 million, And then over a period of 5 years, that money dwindles down to about 10 million or 30 million, and it becomes a big...
I get a very interesting thing you spoke about. There's some level of protectionism, also the issue about taxes as well. I'll be coming back to you to get from you also what has been the level of engagement between you and government and all these concerns that I raised. But let me get on to Zoom and bring in an economist, somebody who has done a lot of work in the area of foreign capital attraction and a lot of papers on it. Professor Robert Osei is a senior economist at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. Prof, surprised or any economy that is going through challenges like these, you will see businesses trying to relocate to other places and just doing the import. We've had some of these multinationals here. They're no longer manufacturing, but they've also moved to other markets and just in the import business. But first, let me get your thoughts. Surprised or any economy that is going through this challenge, it is expected?
Thank you very much, George. Good evening, and good evening to your listeners. Surprised, not really, because, again, one of the things that you need to remember is that even for FDI, it's still businesses coming to invest, right? And for any business, and as Samuel alluded to, the bottom line is profits. Okay, so if you are investing and the risks associated with actually getting the profits which you are supposed to be getting is elevated, then clearly you have to reevaluate. Of course, businesses also have their own projections, medium term, long term. And typically, with FDI, one of the advantages that FDI has is that once they invest, relocating the investment is relatively costly. And so typically you would find that those FDI does not always respond to the markets as a normal, for instance, domestic investor would. However, for these firms to be making the decision to relocate clearly shows that there is something amiss in respect of the economy. Note also that those that are relocating are those FDI firms that will typically be here because of the markets. There are other types of FDI. The resource chasing FDI will essentially ride the storm and wait, because of course their margins are also quite high relative to the market seeking or the efficiency seeking. Indeed, even in our economies, efficiency seeking FDI will be probably negligible. It's typically the market seeking because of where we are located and potentially the sub-Saharan African markets. So clearly in the last couple of years, given some of the challenges we've had with the economy, it's not too surprising. But also remember that from the fiscal point of view, our appetite for resolving our fiscal challenges with taxes is very high relative to doing some of the other things that you can potentially do. And that again has implications for the bottom line, essentially profits. And so for some of us, this does not come as a surprise. Indeed, we expected that there will be some repercussions of some of the actions that we took, whether right or wrong, in the last few years, whether it's in terms of the haircuts, of course, the high inflation, the high interest rates within the domestic economy also does not necessarily help. I heard someone say that it provides an opportunity for domestic firms to essentially fill in the gap. But it's not that easy because, of course, remember that the cost of capital within Ghana is very high relative to bringing capital from outside. And so it wouldn't be necessarily easy. And so, George, my own view is that it's not surprising. The IMF program, potentially, if we can indeed keep to it and keep to the tenets of that program, potentially would confer on us very positive benefits, which could inure to the benefits of these firms. However, I suspect that many of these firms are making decisions based on the fact that, of course, this is also an election year. And the question is whether indeed we think that the political cycle will come to bite us in terms of our fiscals. And of course, that then also will have implications for our taxes and the inflation and interest rates and all those things that will affect the bottom line. So no surprises at all, if you ask me, in terms of what is happening.
Prof, I mean, the concern has come up strongly about the Ghana situation. But if you also look at the broader region as well, then you ask yourself, what is the alternative? There's a bit about taxes. And I remember I met a business person in UK that was complaining bitterly also about taxes. When you also look at the region, the bit about currency depreciation is also not just oblivious to Ghana as well. And again, I want to still focus on the Ghana situation because of the concern where some people have also argued that sometimes maybe it's about the business module. When you look at some of these companies and even in their statements announcing their decision to move out, you realize that they've also cited other markets as well. Is it really a situation where, listen, the alternative is also worse as well. So really, can we blame the Ghana situation, the managers of not doing enough to ensure that this capital is maintained here in Ghana?
I think that there is every reason to be strategic when you are dealing with FDI. And I'm sure when UOF comes, he would elaborate on some of the policies that they are trying to push or have been implementing to ensure that they make Ghana an attractive destination. However, I mean, on paper, for instance, under the ECOWAS, we are supposed to have a common external tariff. We are supposed to have borders that are open so that people can move in and out. Is that the case? Not necessarily. Okay, but the truth is that the cost of doing business in Ghana is high. And also the recent challenges that we've had in respect of our fiscals and debt situation has meant that even the rating agencies haven't looked too favorably on Ghana. Okay, so again, this has implications for the kinds of investments that people will then typically make in such an economy. And so it is true that, yes, of course, taxes in the UK can be very high, but there are other significant benefits of doing businesses in the UK relative to Ghana. I mean, look at the turnaround time for a business that is, say, operating, say, pineapples or sending pineapples from, say, Winnie-Barrow in Sawem to the UK. Clearly, the infrastructure is not one that will typically support a business to be making too much profits. So all of these have implications for the bottom line of the business, and therefore, in terms of medium-term and long-term decisions, they will actually then bring these variables into play and then compare where they believe that international investors also point to favorable medium-term outlook for the country. Then typically you'd expect that investors will respond in like manner. So it is true that we are not the only ones experiencing some of the challenges that we've gone through over the last few years. But clearly, ex post, right, there is a signal that we've sent to investors and for which these investors are responding. Taxes is by no means cheap, okay, in Ghana. And so if we really want to keep them, we need to rethink, we need to re-strategize. And taxes is part of the policy handles that we can potentially use to either keep and indeed attract some of these FDI.
But Prof, again, and then let me come back to you. What can we do about the situation? I mean, improving the tax environment, right? It is very critical. Yeah. And then also the stability of the Ghana city. Because it appears that these are the two major points that these businesses have complained about being the reason why they are going back, they are moving out of Ghana.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and remember that those two things that you mentioned are related. I mean, if your physicals are problematic, that will have implications for your exchange rate. Okay, so clearly the environment has to be improved, the economic environment has to be improved. And when we say the economic environment has to be improved, it comes with a gamut of things, right? So your debt situation has to be improved. You shouldn't default on your debt so that your outlook by investors will be positive, and that then confers some sort of economic benefits to the country. So taxes are important, but also looking at your physicals. And more often than not, and again, every time I have spoken on this, I say that if you have a fiscal challenge, resolving it is not just by taxing people, because taxes in themselves will come back to bite the physicals. Because if you tax people and it affects economic growth, just as we are seeing foreign investors actually leaving, that then will mean that you have less base from which you can actually tax, right? Because it's a cake. And so if you can grow a bigger cake, then even if you are taking 16% or 17% of that cake, then you have a large amount. But if the cake is very small, 17% will be very small as well. And so economic growth is part of the conversation of your fiscals and how you deal with it. So it is not always the case for medium-term solution to some of these challenges. It's not always the case that you actually use taxes, increase taxes to actually deal with the situation. Maybe you could actually look at other things. Maybe you could also postpone some of the investments, public investments that we make. I know that in our parts of the world, everything is a priority, right? Roads are priorities, health is a priority, education is everything, I mean, name it. So everything is a priority, but we still can prioritize, even in some such circumstances. So the key is to be able to identify those constraints that are truly binding and then deal with it one at a time and in a kind of a sequential manner. But prioritization is important.
Prof,
just a quick point. Remember again the point I made about this year being an election year and the fact that in the past, particularly at the end of incumbency, you tend to find that our physicals misbehave a bit. Okay? So clearly, if anybody were to look at the data going back and then juxtapose it on this year, then it is difficult to see how your physicals can be sanitized, even if we are under IMF program.
Prof, I'll be coming back to you to also get your thoughts on the impact on the broader economy and whether there is light at the end of the tunnel, because some are saying that investment is a long-term decision. Therefore, don't just look at the short-term situation to look at what to do. But let me come back to Mr. Agria. So Mr. Agri, what has been the level of engagement with government? Because for some of your members who are in the food, beverage, manufacturing, import business, you've brought in huge capital. Will you want to look at a one-off situation to go back? Have you been engaging government on on these concerns that has come up that is forcing some of your members to move out?
If you look at right down from 2020, the engagement with government have been very keen, elaborating on issues that will really help stabilize the economy. So if you look at all the talks that have been in the media, is when the policy comes out, we go to government and engage. But what we say is that the then finance minister is the one that will be meeting a lot on this. But whether they were listening or they want to do their own thing is another problem. Because when you look at someone coming to put in the capital into your economy and they're facing a problem, we then have to look at it. What exactly is the problem that you are facing? And we need to really talk to them to stay and invest more. But unfortunately, all the talks and engagement that we did fell on deaf ears.
So, but that is serious, because this is not just, and this is no disrespect to a local Ghanaian business, but this is not just a Georgia fish selling at maybe Balisha, at East Legon, or this is somebody that has brought in significant capital. That business is employing a minimum of 20 Ghanaians and all the rest, or even 50 Ghanaians. So the same level of maybe opening or maybe encounter that you have with that person would definitely be different. Did you really push that much? And again, from your association level, from your member, in drawing the attention of the GIPC, the GRA, the Ministry of Finance, and all those things before saying that, listen, we have gotten to that level where we think that, listen, we are tired. We are moving out. We are moving our manufacturing plant to maybe Senegal and also do the import so that we can compete with the Chinese firms that are bringing in their staff.
We've had a lot of engagements. AGI, they're engaging government very often. GUTA, engaging. Chamber, engaging. The Food and Beverage Association, engaging. All of us have sat on one table discussing and telling government, these are some of the policies that you are introducing that will not help business to move forward. And therefore, we need to look at them. But you see, when you are an investor in this country, you are seen as an armed robber or whatever they classify you. I don't understand. Because once I put my money in your economy and things are going wrong, once we engage, then definitely we are engaging for a good cause. Because nobody wants to see the economy running down because of the bad policies that we introduce, and therefore we are not engaging to ensure that whatever that is going on, the country will be a winner. But especially when the GRA comes in to audit your accounts and they realize that you are making more profits, and this go to the finance minister, that is when they also plan to tax you more.
But is that not the situation that if you're making more profits, if you're making supernormal profits, it is just fair the tax equity
it's only
to
fair.
share with the state as well.
You see, George,
you're benefiting from electricity, you're benefiting from routes. We've seen some of the companies and the profit that they are making.
That is where sometimes we
it is wrong.
Because we say everybody needs to pay the taxes for the economy to run. Economy is run on taxes. But what tax would be fair to be collected? You don't see me earning so much, and therefore you come and tax me that I cannot even pay. Because you see, anytime that you raise the tax bar, somebody becomes more poorer. And we are dealing with human beings. And therefore, whatever that you want to earn, let me benefit from the taxes that you are taking. But if you look at the way our economy is structured, it's as if we are working for the politician to take the money outside this country. But the money needs to stay in this country to run the system, to make sure that all of us become a winner. So if I'm putting in my money to invest. And I get to a point and I realize that there's a problem there. And I come to you, government, and tell you, this is the situation that I'm facing. You need to look at, because I have said that, look, we need to lower taxes. It's not all the time that we increase taxes. That will
bring in more revenue to the state.
Bring in more revenue.
Sometimes a lower tax band actually encourages more compliance and contribution to the state.
Everything, government will get the money that you need. If you look at 2017, when government said import duty will be reduced on certain commodities, we said that was a good move. And so therefore, more people come in to pay for the food duty that they need to pay. And then government also made a lot of money. If you listen to GRA, they keep on meeting their targets and even exceeding. It's because of the targets and how the structure, the tax policy was structured. Unfortunately, when government went back to say, I'm going for 100% recovery, what you have done is to increase the cost of every commodity on the market. And therefore, if we are not careful, we will not even be in competition anymore. So we say, look, this is the way to go. Look at those who are bringing in. The statistics are there. If you look at whatever that we are importing, every single item has its records in the system. So therefore, you look at the numbers that are coming in, and you look at the benefits, and then the disadvantage that is given to this country. So let us look at it this way. All these people that are bringing in so much that we think that we are importing so much and therefore we need to bring it down by cutting the imports. Benchmark whatever that is coming in. Sit these people down, give them an incentive, a policy that they will buy into, so that whatever that they are importing, they look at it and say, look, we can manufacture these things in this country. These are the benefits for manufacturing in this country. And therefore, let me go into that. So they turn their import into production. This is what we are saying. Because there are a lot of them who really wants to do the processing, manufacture other food items in this country for the country to move forward. But when they look at the taxes, because you cannot produce and manufacture and pay taxes of almost about 70% to government and then retain your 30%. I mean, who does that? So we say, look.
Is that the situation?
That's the situation. That's the
that
situation.
You're paying about 70% of your...
Almost 70%. This is
of your revenue as taxes.
That is what is happening. You see, when you brought the sustainability bill, we told you nobody will work for him to give you free money in that order. So that was a bad policy that the government brought. And therefore, if they are listening, this is the best time to take it off. Because you see, when things are getting difficult, that is when you strategize the system to ensure that people also benefit from the losses that they are making. But you don't keep on pushing for people to pay more taxes when the economy itself is going down. So when you do that, what do we get? So we say, look at all the structures and look at where we can really downsize certain things. And then we give them the leverage to produce in this country. And when we do that, the other way is that don't let them just produce. By producing, what are your strengths on the ground? I mean, employing 20 people, I give you a benchmark of maybe in the next 2 years, I want to see you employing about 150 people. So therefore, I'll do A, B, C, D for you. This is how to run. And then you look at the cost of borrowing. If I take money in this country, how much am I supposed to pay? You can't pay 40% interest. You can't pay 39% interest. Let it go down to even at least 5% so that people can borrow money from the banks and invest in the economy. Because you cannot go outside and borrow money, bring it here to invest, and then how do you pay the money back when you are losing that money, the very investment that you are making?
I know some of the investment persons will always make the argument that this is not or should not be a one-off decision because you brought in capital. What if tomorrow the situation improves maybe just after the elections or something? are you going to come back? Because then the cost of coming back, reopening these centers and all the rest, if that decision to go, wouldn't it be now be more costly to your members?
If you ask me, I will tell you, that is why I started by saying people look at their investment on the ground. If you take some of these beverage companies, huge factories, and the situation is very bad. You are employing thousands of people. Am I going to shut down? Who is going to buy that factory for you? So therefore, let me find a way to turn things around the way we can. So they also do that. And then the investment stays. But in the interest of profitability, let me look at the sub-region where they are offering better incentives. So when I go to Togo, I can do it less than 20%. When I go to Ivory Coast, it's about 15%. When I go to Burkina, it's almost about 10%. So let me take advantage and go there. So they move chunk of their investment. The money that's supposed to stay in this country, they go to those countries and invest over there and produce the very things that you are producing in this country. So then competition becomes very key. If I'm not able to produce to meet the target that my consumers want, it becomes a problem. If I produce more, it costs me more to produce that. You look at electricity, the cost of electricity, and electricity is not stable for me to make a continuous production. If you look at the utility water service, for instance, I have to spend so much money to treat the water that is coming from the government or the Ghana Water and Sewage for me to get a better quality of water to do my production. Then you look at the cost of taxes that has also come to stay with you, and then you look at all these things. So it becomes a problem.
It is a painful decision.
You see,
I mean, because I don't have the permission. I recently found out a big multinational that was gradually scaling down and moving some of their major investments outside as well. Should we be expecting more of them?
It depends. You see, that is...
Because, I mean, I was shocked because this is a multinational that has been in this country for years. And then it's like because of from what you picked up from your other members, are we going to see more of them moving out, scaling down investments in Ghana?
If we continue the path that we are going, it's going to happen. We say, look at the situation, the trend as it is now, and then reverse some of the policies that you have introduced that is creating this problem. So you do that and reinvest confidence in these people.
I'm asking from the boardroom concern and what is good. Because listen, some of the things I have picked up.
You see, you can see it.
Are they giving the listen? I mean, there are some who are even holding on to investment because of elections uncertainty. There are some who have gotten to the point that listen, I am struggling to justify fresh capital for my parent company because the city depreciation, even no matter profits I'm making here, when I send to the group, it's peanuts. I know of a Ghanaian MD of a multinational who was moved because of the fact that they think that it was the person. So they brought in another foreign national to manage the situation because of how bad the situation is. From the association gossips and what your members, are we going to see more of them moving out?
It's good to lay the truth bare. Let us be frank. It's a situation, a phenomenon which is happening. And it's going to continue. More people are going to move their investment outside. You see, if I'm producing a particular product and I start facing a problem where I am, and I have to move part of my investment to produce the same product in another territory, what it means is that a chunk of your investment is gone. Now, instead of producing to export to those countries, they tell you, come and invest here and produce the same thing. I'll give you A, B, C, D, which we are not offering. So therefore, they go there, they produce, and they get the market that they want. Eventually, when they are getting the bigger market, they will prefer to move their investment to that facility and then re-export their production to you. So it becomes the other way around. And we can't be a country where we need to import everything. So when people bring in their money to invest in these areas, what we need to do is to protect them like a golden egg, to make sure that whatever investment that they brought in, they get the needed profits, put it back into their investment, expand the facility that they have, employ more. Because you see,
what do you want government to be doing now, at least to hold, at least in the cheap balance, you know, what has gone has gone. What about protecting the rest?
You see, we need to reverse most of the bad policies that we have.
Like
things that we have complained.
If you talk about taxes, government will tell you that they need to raise revenue.
Look at
you talk about stability of the city, they will tell you that they are doing an IMF program that should correct the situation.
Let me give you a scenario. If you import one product, I'm in the food sector. So let me take biscuit, for instance. Do you know how many taxes you are paying on that one biscuit that you are buying? 21 different taxes.
On a biscuit?
On one biscuit.
A box or just one biscuit?
Okay, sorry, yeah. You see, so if I have to pay so much on this, then I look at, we say we want to entice more people to produce locally. But the local person, as I'm paying the 21%, the local person producing the same biscuit is paying also almost about 65% on that same biscuit. So look at the trend. Where are the incentives? So people are not benefiting from what we are doing. But you see, in every country, for you to grow, food is the most essential thing that you need not to pay so much. It has to be cheap for people to really go into it. Because if food becomes very expensive and we can't buy, then where are we? You see, so if you look at the structure of all these things that we have, we say, look at it, look at the fuel sector. Because anytime the fuel goes up, the cost of moving food from one end to the other becomes very expensive. Because the transportation aspect of it automatically changes. And therefore, the cost of that same thing that you are moving from one end to the other becomes more expensive. So look at the fuel sector, look at the electricity, look at the water, look at the taxation system itself. There's something peculiar happening in these areas that if we take a critical look and then reverse them, I'm telling you, we are going to
stop the rest from going
for the country. Because if we are producing in this country, the best thing to do is to export, to make the needed money that we need as a country. We can then expand the facilities, employ more, because government can only benefit from the employment sector, where the employer is paying, the employee and the employer are paying the internal revenue for government to use. But if you raise the taxes and your salary, you are paying almost about 20 or 21% as internal revenue to government. I mean, what kind of business? It becomes a very big problem. So let us look at these areas and then reverse some of the things that we have done. Something that we need to take off the table is the sustainability bill. We need to scrap it immediately, because I cannot work, make my money, and before I declare my tax, I pay 25% of my money free of charge.
Before the tax before profit as well. These are the inconsistencies in these tax policies.
We need to reverse some of the things that can really make this economy boom again. Because if you look at where we are now, and in election year, all these investors are looking at how much am I going to leave in this country or save to ensure that if anything happens, I can...
Mr. Agri, I'll come back to you on the election fever and the impact on investment. But let me bring in Professor Robert Osei as well. And Prof, what can government do now? Or what should government be doing now? Because if you mention the Ghana city, they will tell you that, listen, we have a fund program, we are working to do the situation. Talk about taxes. The argument would be that there's a need to raise some taxes to help in the correction of our debt situation and all the rest, a fund program would actually not allow you to scrap these taxes and all the rest. Can anything be done? Because if you look at we hear the rumors, and I know, Prof, you hear them, the boardroom rumors and all those things about these businesses. Some are saying that they've gotten to the point where they are making a justification to stay and all the rest. What can be done now, or what should be done now to at least manage the exit of all these firms?
Thank you, George. And I know the issue of taxes, I think Samuel has actually tried to deal with it quite extensively. Although, to be honest, I'm not sure the 70% what the basis of that 70% is. I'll probably have to really look at some of the research that is ongoing from businesses. But more directly to the question you ask about taxes, and you make the point that if you ask government to deal with a tax issue, they talk about the fact that they are in an IMF program, and therefore, I think it is not entirely correct. Okay. The IMF program is about fiscal sustainability. And so if you can make the case that you are actually going to look at your expenditure side as well and not compromise your medium-term growth with the high taxes, I don't see how IMF will say they wouldn't agree. But of course, if you say that you are going to maintain your expenditures at certain level and cut taxes, then the IMF will begin to question you how you actually finance the gap, right? Of course, there is a lot of rigidities in our expenditure, particularly given the high percent that will go to some of the statutory lines. But I still believe that we can make some inroads by looking at the fiscal situation in totality as opposed to just thinking of raising taxes every time we have a fiscal challenge. That cannot be the solution. Short term, medium term, long term, it is not the solution. Indeed, in the science of taxes, we talk about optimal taxation. Optimal taxation is not the highest taxes. Okay? And in the history of taxes, people pay taxes in exchange for social services. And so, of course, if you are paying taxes and you are not seeing the social services happen, or the investments related to social services happen, then you would begin to look for ways by which you can actually avoid paying taxes.
And are we, Prof, let me just make a rude intervention here. Are we getting there? Because, again, I engaged the CEO of a multinational. They said that right now, they are also looking at more innovative ways to minimize their tax obligation. That is, the avoidance. I stand to be corrected. I always mix up the two. So now they are bringing in the tax experts and the accounting experts to look at more innovative means to reduce their tax obligations.
Absolutely. I mean, again, as I said from the beginning, every business, irrespective of whether it's a foreign investor or a domestic investor, is in the business for the bottom line, the bottom line being profits, right? But we also understand that as citizens, whether individuals or businesses, we have an obligation to pay our taxes in exchange for social services, in exchange for improved environments, okay? And these two things will feed on themselves. So when the taxes are too high, clearly, you must leave, okay? And the businesses must leave as well. And so they would find ways around it. Of course, it is also important to note that we are not on an island, right? And we have neighboring countries. And so the actions of economic agents are reflective not only of taxes in Ghana, but also of taxes elsewhere. Again, I think Samuel alluded to that. The investment destination will compete for every dollar of investment. Okay, so a domestic investor in Ghana can become a foreign investor in Togo, right? And it's still the same dollar or cedi investment that the investor would have to make the decisions on. Do I put it in Ghana or do I put it in Togo? Again, bottom line, if I put it in Ghana, what will be the returns? If I put it in Togo, what will be the returns? They are not thinking first and foremost of, okay, if I invest that money, then Ghana government can get more revenue. No, not necessarily. Of course, the investor also should be making profits. Now, when they are making profits, then of course, they would be paying their taxes. If the taxes are not too much, why would you then bring in an expert that you would pay a lot of money to help you to reduce your taxes? So these things they are a bit dicey, but I think that what is currently happening is reflective of the fact that we cannot tax ourselves out of our current problems. No, it would not happen because agents will react based on the policies. And so if there is no incentive to produce in Ghana, and of course, they have the opportunity to produce elsewhere, they would certainly look at that option.
Prof, let me, I mean,
Yes.
you've spoken extensively about the issue about the taxation and all the rest, but what about the medium to short-term measures in containing the city's depreciation? And I engage a bank MD that has over the years been doing so well, and I'll not mention the name. And when it comes to the group level, they are struggling because when they convert that profit into dollars, it is peanuts in the group's operations. And even it's gotten to that level where the group think that, let me bring in a new MD to manage the situation. Because even though they are doing very well, making huge city profits, it's peanuts when it's converted into dollars, and it's like the Ghana business is not doing well in the group. I mean, this is quite painful, some will say. At least if it's not the depreciation, let's hold the CDN a little bit stable. What can be done in the medium to short term to deal with the city's pressure, which has actually come back again over the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, there are some problems or factors that are systemic that will take a while to deal with. The fact that we just have a penchant for imported goods, right? That is behavior. Behavior can change with incentives, but it takes time, right? So that certainly we can work on. But medium term, you've got to then begin to also look at your supply chain within the domestic economy and also incentivize the supply of goods and services within the economy. Because, of course, ultimately you want a particular good. Ultimately, you want a car, whether it is Katanka or, of course, it's whatever other car there is that we import, right? So if you incentivize Katanga so that they are able to produce to the quality level that is comparable to whatever other cars that we tend to buy, then now you have proper competition. Because in truth, yes, we are producing, but really there isn't still enough competition against some of the imports. And that is a fact. even for food, if you ask those in the, whether it's poultry, piggery business, part of the food that goes into the feeding of these animals are actually imported, right? The food that we eat every day. Again, significant parts of it is actually imported. And even when we produce it within the country, we are not competitive. Okay, so clearly there is some fundamentals that is not right, and which we need to deal with policy. Now, you talked about utilities. So it is not just the fact that the utility rates are high, but the other factors, the reliability of the utilities that we get. Again, that has implications for the supply side of things. And once you compromise the supply side of things, then of course, you've got to buy goods. And so then, of course, then there is a pressure on the dollar. But even where the government itself has a penchant for importing goods, I think we've heard stories in the past where some arms of government wanted to import all sorts of things from outside the country, right? Again, not only are you adding to the problem, but you're also signaling that it is okay, it is cool to do that. Okay, so yes, of course, we need to deal with some of the supply side bottlenecks. They are critical, particularly for domestic production. Because if you don't deal with the supply side bottlenecks, then you really cannot compete. There's no effective competition. And if you do not have effective competition, then of course, you will still have increasing demand for foreign currency, and therefore, again, that will have implications on your exchange rates and all of that.
Prof, I'll come back to you again on the impact on the economy and all these things, and a war become. I can also, Mr. Agri, as well. There's also the human touch to this. You've employed people. You are scaling down. You know, where are these people also going as well? This is PM Express Business Edition. As we look at is whether Ghana is losing out on its position as the favorable business destination for the region, and all the concerns that businesses have been expressed. We've been hearing thought to Professor Robert Osei. He's an economist, a senior economist at the Institute of Social and Economic Research, somebody who has done a lot of work in the area of foreign direct investment. Also, Samuel Agri, he's the General Secretary of the Food and Beverage Association. We're supposed to have had Yofi Grant join us on the discussion. We're still working to get him to join us. We'll take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we look at Ghana's business as a favorable business destination, and whether that accolade that we have enjoyed over the years, we are losing it gradually because of the current challenging economy. Or whether some will say that these multinational, these business firms are just not being strategic to adapt to the challenging global situation. Professor Robert Osei is a senior economist at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. Samuel Agri is with the Food and Beverage Association, and also Yofi Grant, Chief Secretary of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, was supposed to join us on this discussion, and we are still working our lines to let him join us in terms of to get the thought of as a chief investment promoter and what he's also doing. Mr. Agri, I hear some of the stories and I marvel, because I'm saying that I'm very young, but this is not the first time we've seen such a sorry and a challenging economic situation. And businesses that have been here for years are scaling down. Some of them are top corporate secrets, so you don't want to talk about it. But also, there are some who bring, and I bring back the argument about being strategic to adapt to the competition. Isn't that also a major factor that we are missing in all this discussion where there's competition coming in. These businesses cannot just stand up to the competition. And therefore, the easiest thing is to run away.
You see, we keep saying we need to protect our local industries. So we should ban imports. It's not the banning, but how do we do it so that both sides can really be in competition? If you look at the situation in Ghana, we don't have so many manufacturers. That is why I keep saying that even the Intercontinental African Free Trade that they brought on board, Ghana will not be a benefactor. Because if you look at the way it's structured, all the other countries or the African countries, if you look at, you go to Egypt, you go to Kenya, you go to Morocco, you go to Algeria, you go to Tunisia, you go to Nigeria, now Senegal. These are areas that are trying to push their products all over. But the way the thing has to be is you look at the strength of each country. This is what you can do. So you produce for the other African countries. Then you look at the other area, what is your strength? You do for the other African countries. And then the intertrade community can really be very effective. Now, when you come to Ghana, the products that we produce are limited. And we cannot meet the competition outside. So therefore, if an importer wants a certain capacity of products and they ask, sometimes we cannot even meet it. But if you look at what is happening now, and you look at some of the brands that are coming up, the way they are packaged is internationally acceptable. We are doing well in that area. And we have good marketers and designers and brand managers who can really position the product for that kind of the market that we are looking at. But because we don't have the factories in this country and we are not producing more than importing, it's becoming a challenge. I've always said that unless we turn things around for this country to produce and export into the other African countries, but we are closing that gap gradually. We need to open that gap to bring in the people, the investors, to put their money here. So that from here, as we said, the gateway, can then reach out to the other.
Let me come back again to the sentimental and the human touch of it. I mean, you brought in capital, you've rented buildings, you've employed people, and this bit about even scaling down is not just limited to the super proprietorship kind of international firms, but even the multinationals. Do you care about the impact of your decision on persons that you've employed? That are in Ghana here, one hand might be feeding 10 or 20 people. Some of these businesses have asked their people to go home.
Anytime
you care about those impact of your actions on the people.
It's not us who are creating those problems.
Now, who is creating it?
But you look at the economic factors. You see, that is why I say, if government really wants this country to thrive and produce, government, you cannot set up factories and compete with the manufacturers, like we see in the 1D, 1F area. You cannot do that. You are not manager of these facilities. Create the atmosphere. Let us come in and put our money there and invest. And you take the needed taxes that you want. But when you want to compete with us, then we sit back and watch. What is happening? If government wants to do this in the realm of the political atmosphere, let them do it. You do it, you sell it cheaper, as against the taxes that I'm paying, and then you look at how much I have to pay. So therefore, if you look at the economic outlook, it's not good. If you look at the taxes that we are paying, it's not good. If you look at the other background incentives, facilities that we need to pay, as a manufacturer or a business person, then you say, once I'm not making that profit, what's the need to keep on?
Yeah, not for the Christmas.
So
it's a painful decision you have to
So
take.
therefore, if you look at what is happening now, more businesses are going to downsize their employees in order to be in business. Others are also deploying smart technologies to make sure that they still remain in business. And so therefore, if you have 1,000 staff and you are laying off even 200 of them, look at the 200 of them and multiply it by 3 of other dependents on these 200 people. How much are you putting off?
Mr. Gray, I'll come back to you on even the elections as well as you try to. But let me bring in Professor Roberto as well. Prof, again, and I wouldn't mention that multinational's name, where we understand that even because of the elections, even though some will say that we've made a strong, progress over the years, a huge investment that they were supposed to do this year, they've put it on hold. How is the election fever also playing into these people holding on to investment, trying to relocate, freeze expansion and all the rest, also making the situation worse for us?
Obviously, it does play a part, and you can't blame people for holding back investments in an election year. But typically, that kind of investment blip is very temporary. It's really transitory and not permanent, as we are seeing with some of the stories that we are hearing. And so, for me, of course, people have every right to worry about the political environment and therefore make investment decisions. I think it's improving, of course, but it is important that all actors, and here I'm saying all actors in terms of political actors as well as the state, should ensure that we create an environment and the temperature is such that it doesn't put people off in terms of investments. Because you asked a very important question, right, to Mr. Agri, relating to whether they don't care about the people that they employ. I guess the other side of that question is whether the governments, and here I'm not saying any particular government, but whether governments also care about the people employed by businesses. Whether political actors care about the people that businesses employ. Because if they do, then our actions will be moderated to the extent that we know that these actions or some of these actions can have adverse repercussions for our own people that we want to essentially come and then serve in government. Okay, so it is important that all of us, of course, and even including the media, are very up to the task in terms of election year and the kind of fever that we tend to create. Sometimes even when there isn't a problem, we create a problem. These days, you find that people are using social media to create all sorts of mischief, right? And in some cases, I think people sometimes forget that it's some of these stories that led to some of the things that happened in our neighboring,
Rwanda.
Well, not very neighboring, but still other African countries. Yes, precisely. So I think that for me, yes, it's normal for businesses to react in an election year when there is increased uncertainty, right? But I think that part of that reaction, or usually the blip associated with the investment, is very transitory, and it's not something that will linger up.
Prof,
The bigger challenge, of course, with
Professor,
Yeah.
because of time,
The
it's not
bigger
that.
problem is the FDI.
Because of time, I
Yes,
not be
please.
our best friend, and as you try to wrap up in just about 2 minutes from you, in all these things, this relocation, the cutting down, and all the rest, what could be the bigger immediate impact on the economy? Maybe in just 3 minutes, Prof. As I try and wrap up with you, Prof.
You mean the FDIs that we are seeing reversed?
Yeah, what could be the bigger
Of course,
impact
it has implications
on the economy immediately?
It has implications for employment. It has implications for revenue. It has implications for economic growth. Of course, that can perpetuate inequality and deprivation that we've seen in the country. That can also have implications for our fiscals and indeed inflation that we have been trying very hard to deal with. So there are quite a number of things that if we do not reverse this reversal in FDI, then typically we should be ready to face the music, as it were.
Mr. Agri, for you, what is the way forward? Because what I'm seeing in the crystal ball and what I'm hearing, the gossips, it doesn't sound good.
It doesn't. And to be frank with you, we have a situation on hand that we need to approach it in a very sincere and open manner. And this will come from the government side. By meeting these businesses and ensuring that they really have the confidence in keeping their money in this country. Once that is done, then they will be able to expand whatever facility that they have and ensure that the economy grow through the employment area. Recently, if you heard the news on your own platform, you were discussing about the downsizing of the state issue. Yeah. Because in few years, we are not careful, the SNIT concept will collapse. It's because it's like a pawn scheme. The SNIT system is like a pawn scheme. You take money from 3 or 4 people and you give it to one person. So it means that you need to grow to ensure that you continually be able to raise the money to pay the other person. Otherwise, it will be a problem. So if you look at how these things are done, then of course, we have to come on board and ensure that we rather employ more to make sure that government get the needed revenue through the employment, but not the taxes that they are looking at.
No more taxes. Professor Robert Osei, he's a senior economist at the...
So, George.
30 seconds, Prof.
Can I?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
Food for thought, and I don't have an answer to this. It's just a question I want you to reflect on. Do you think that the e-levy has had implications for Global in terms of its profitability? Again, I said I don't have an answer. It's just food for thought.
We will think about it. Professor Robert Osei, senior economist at the ISE. He joined us via Zoom. Samagri is the General Secretary of the Food and Beverage Association. Joining us on PM Express Business Edition. And apologies, you were supposed to have had the Chief Executive of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Youfu Grant, to join us in this discussion, but sometimes beyond his control, he couldn't make it. I know that debate will go on in your offices, in your homes, on whether and how do we ensure that we don't lose out and have more businesses move out of the country. My name is George Yafe. Have a great day.